All right, good day everybody. I trust you're all having a good time so far. Quite a few people here do know me, but for those of you who don't, I'm a risk engineer by trade, that's my background. But about 4 years ago, I got involved in a PhD research program at the Queensland University of Technology, whereby we started looking at the relationship between complexity and risk. And through one research avenue or another, I soon found myself becoming a bit of a subject matter expert or a sort of a champion for the future of risk management. Where is risk management going 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now? I started writing a number of papers and published some things around this, and before I knew it, I was being invited to conferences like this and presenting on it. Today's presentation is a new one. I'm very proud about it, and I hope you're going to enjoy it as much as I did putting it together, because this is the first time I'm presenting an active view of what risk management is going to have to look like in roughly 5 years from now, 10 years and 30 years, to keep up with all these complex disruptive forces that we've been hearing about along the last 2 days. The fact is, our world is changing and changing quickly, and risk management needs to keep up. So, just to understand the evolution of our working world, I'm going to set the scene for you. The telephone took roughly 70 years to attract 100 million users. Facebook took roughly 5 years, and Candy Crush only 3. What this tells us is that soon we should expect to see startup organizations emerge that can attract 100 million customers in less than a year and 1 billion within 3. All right? This means a modern organization's biggest competitor a year from now may be one that doesn't even yet exist. This is the symptoms of the new world that we live in. So welcome to the 4th Industrial Revolution. You've heard a lot about it. The big question now that I want to put to all of you and what we're going to discuss, are you prepared? So, for those of you who aren't really familiar with it and wondering what it's all about, in the past 250 years, there have been roughly 4 major evolutions of our working world. The first one was roughly the 1700s, the steam revolution, where we saw the creation of steam plants, factories, basic mechanization, steamships, and that kind of thing. This revolutionized our world. We moved out of the agricultural era into modern industry and the very beginning of what we know as modern industry today. The second revolution was roughly the early 1900s, when affordable, accessible power was given to the masses. And all of a sudden, we had lighting. The lights literally came on, all right? We saw the birth of 24/7 factories, electrical motors, refrigeration, assembly lines, heaters, air conditioners, you name it. All the comforts we love that are power generated. Once again, the world was radically transformed. The third revolution was the computer revolution. Roughly the 60s to the 80s when it started, we saw the birth of mainframes, personal computers, programming, data, automation, electronics. That eventually led to the internet, e-commerce, email, and operating systems such as MS Windows. All of these radically changed our working world and our existence one again. Right now, we are at the entrance to the next industrial revolution. The 4th revolution, known as the technology revolution, or the cyber revolution, or the digital revolution. It's all the same thing. But what we are expecting is advanced cyber systems to take over our world. And as Stephen said earlier, this is the first one where it will actually change who we are, not just what we do. So the key learning here is that each of these revolutions represents a major evolutionary growth spurt in human existence. You can actually go back and look at each of these and see how human existence actually accelerated during their time, how our thinking improved, our intellectual capital improved, how our wealth improved, how our methods improved. It's actually physically measurable. So these are very, very important evolutionary growth spurts for us as a species, and we are now standing at the doorstep of the next one. And the so what of it all, okay, revolutions, they come and go, so what? The world is at a fundamental crossroads, and this is something that the World Economic Forum, led by Klaus Schwab, has repeated over and over again, and it's questionable whether people are listening and taking it on board, but the future combination of big data, smart technologies, and integrated cyber systems is going to transform our existence, not our working world, our existence, in ways that we cannot yet imagine. Are you ready? Are you prepared for this? And this is something that they've written extensively about, and they talk about, and they try to educate people. Get ready. Change your thinking, change your behaviors, change your organization. Because this revolution has the potential to be the mother of them all. All right? So, one of the questions I get regularly is, why do we believe that this is a revolution? Why not just change? Change is all around us. It's happening on a daily basis. So why revolution? Why weaponize it? Why make it sound scarier than it is? Well, there's very real materiality to this being yet another revolution. And there are three revolutionary fronts that we're talking about that we need to understand and plan for. The first one is what I call revolutionary front number one. We've heard a lot about this. It's the combination of big data and advanced analytics. If you put those two things together, you get a very key concept: smart technology. Now, most of you know smart. We talked about the smartphone earlier, and we, for the longest time, thought smart meant it's a clever device, which it is, but that's actually not what smart stands for. Smart stands for self-monitoring, analyzing, and responding technologies. There are technologies designed to monitor your behavior and adjust their service offering to make themselves more indispensable to you. Now think about this. The telephone has been around for roughly 150 years. It was only when we added smart technology to it that it actually became addictive, indispensable. We use our smartphones, our smart devices, to babysit our children. Okay? That's what we do with it. That's how indispensable they've become. So imagine a working world where everything has smart capabilities: smart cities, smart homes, smart offices, smart devices, smart instruments, smart car, smart toilets. That's actually a thing, all right? Toilets that monitor your behavior and patterns and then adjust accordingly. That is the way the working world is going. So this revolutionary front alone has massive potential. The second revolutionary front, the combination of artificial intelligence and robotics. We've heard about that before. All right, we are expecting recent and even future advancements to change the way we view machines. We will start accepting machines as contributing members of our society and contributing members of our family. That's the way the world is going. So we are expecting to see colossal leaps in the role of intelligent, autonomous machinery in our society. The third revolutionary front is the scary one, and Steve talked about it a little bit earlier. The integration of humans and technology, how we coexist. The technology now exists to actually start replacing human capability, human components, human organs. And that's going to raise huge moralistic questions around how the role between a machine and the role between a human and how we coexist and interact with each other. And there's got to be a lot of gray area we've got to get over. So these three revolutionary fronts are massive, they are powerful, they can change our existence, and they equally could advance us as a species or they could destroy us. And this is where a lot of the risk is lying right now, is how do we bring this on board in a way that we can deal with it and it doesn't bring everything crashing to the ground. So one of the natural questions becomes, well, how quickly are we expecting this industry version 4.0 to emerge? Are we talking 5 years, 10 years, 30 years? So here's my academically battered attempt to explain what we're expecting. So if we look at smart technologies, right now in the year 2020, we estimate there are roughly 25 billion smart devices on the planet. That's phones, iPads, intelligent security systems, blah, 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 smart devices, right? The World Economic Forum estimates that by 2025, we will be in the zone of 70 billion smart devices on this planet, personal smart devices. That is roughly 10 per human being, and it's an almost threefold increase. So think about that. That's just in the next 5 years. So how addicted you are to your phones, multiply that by 3 devices in the next 5 years. Within 30 years, we expect to have achieved full digital Earth status. That means fully digitized cities, industries, infrastructure, and services. And the downside of this is there will be mass-scale societal dependence on technology. Certain sections of the human population will not be able to exist in one way or another without a mass dependence on technology, whether it's technology bringing food to your doorstep or the supply chains or the security around you. A lot of us are going to be fully dependent on cyber systems for our survival. So, robotics, intelligent androids. Right now in 2020, there are extensive trials of intelligent autonomous machines. We're seeing it everywhere. Autonomous cars, autonomous drones, etc. All right? By 2025, we are expecting full societal acceptance of fully autonomous machines. That means a drone will fly over your head delivering a pizza and we won't even think anything of it. A bus will go by that doesn't have a driver and we'll think nothing of it. All right? By 2050, we are expecting fully autonomous industries, labor, security, and services. And the downside of this is 50% of existing jobs may no longer exist. The world will change that rapidly. A lot of the things that we do now will be taken over by programs or intelligent bots or whatever, chances are 50% of what we do now will no longer exist. And that is a measured fact in every industrial revolution so far. So it's not an exception, it's actually the norm in an industrial revolution. The third one, integration of humans and technology. Right now, we already have societal acceptance of implants, artificial limbs, cloning, cosmetic surgery, and even gender reassignment. What that means is we as humans are actually comfortable tampering with the human form in its purest form, all right? By 2025, we should expect to have extensive human trials of bionic limbs, neural enhancers, and cloned organs, all right? Now, some of you who follow my writing on LinkedIn may have seen I put a post in about a week or two ago. In the last month, it's roughly 40, 45 days, we've achieved 2 critical milestones in this era. The world's first 3D printed spine transplant was successfully conducted. So a lower spine was manufactured by 3D print, and they put the transplant in and it works. There's now a person walking around with a synthetic spine, all right? The second one, which I found very, very interesting, was the world's first successful double amputee bionic arm replacement was conducted. There is now a double amputee walking around with 2 fully functional bionic arms. So this stuff is already happening now. In 5 years, it will just be happening on a much broader scale, and we will accept it much more. By 2050, we expect full societal acceptance of cyber-enhanced humans. In other words, cyber humans who are dependent on personal technology for their existence, all right? We also expect to see the first 150-year-old human. That brings threats and opportunities with it. If you're expecting to retire at 70, and the technology is forcing you to live to 120, 130, possibly 150, what are we going to do in that 80 years? Steve was talking about that earlier. There is big questions around what do we do with the retiring generation when there are less and less modern jobs. But these are the kind of things that we have to work out. And as I said, if we don't work it out, this could just as easily destroy us as it could advance us. So this is big ticket stuff. It's not, just theory. It's the things that the World Economic Forum are looking at, are worrying about, and looking at organizations to help themselves. They're not going to do it by themselves. It's only going to work through an extensive collaboration. So, this is all interesting stuff. Yeah, the future's going that way. I'm all on board. But what does this mean for our profession? What will a future risk management version 4.0 need to offer if it is to provide value to this future working world? So I think the short answer is this, and I hate to tell you this, but right now it is not entirely clear what Industry 4.0 will require from the future risk management profession. It's almost certainly going to be a matter of debate amongst the invested risk management community for some time to come. There are, however, a number of obvious control areas that are almost certain we will need to be working in this space, and that means organizations such as yourself, or even on a personal level, you can start upskilling in this area or start even investing in infrastructure that will allow you to get there. So the first obvious control area is the one we have heard the most about here today, and yesterday for that matter. Cyber enhanced risk management. There is no doubt that all these cyber tools that are coming down can help enhance every step of the risk management value chain. That's a no-brainer, all right? So that's probably the most obvious one, and we've heard it in various forms over the last 2 days. How drones, 3D visualization, virtual reality, augmented reality, the Internet of Things, blockchain technology. We've heard various stories about how all of this is helping to enhance the risk management process and value chain. Big question is, how many organizations are actually investing in that? How many organizations, that's the scary thing, is the technology exists, but few organizations are actually investing in the infrastructure to get themselves there, and that's the scary thing. So, although that there's a lot of obvious stuff we could be doing to improving the risk management fraternity, it's questionable whether organizations are actually doing it. Are they embracing it? There seems to be a fundamental reluctance in the risk management profession to try things new. Maybe it's our compliance culture, I don't know. But we're going to have to change around this. And the thing that I find most exciting is that every industrial revolution has not been a revolution because it's improved existing methods. It's because it made existing methods redundant and brought in brand new methods, and that's the exciting part. A lot of what we accept today as risk management better practice is more than likely going to become redundant as new methods come along. And already we're starting to see the green shoots of new methods come through. Now this is a presentation all by itself. I could speak for half a day on all the stuff that I'm seeing around new forms of risk management. But I'll give you 2 examples that I really like. One is there are a number of firms, software firms starting to develop 3D hologram type mapping software that shows the relationships between various risks and their control. So picture your risk registers and your bow ties analysis, which look at cause, effects, and controls on any risk scenario. Picture taking all of those and putting them into a 3D model that shows you how they're all interconnected. And if I add a control to this, what does it do to the risk profile? If I move that control, if I add another risk, how does it create knock-on risk? It's 3D visualization of the relationships between risks and their controls and their causes and their effect. We've never done that before. That is groundbreaking stuff. But that technology now exists, and there are a number of firms, including one of the big fours, that are exploring this. And within, I say, probably the next 6 months, we'll actually start seeing this kind of software becoming mainstream, which means in future, we will not do risk reports as risk registers or risk engineering report. We'll actually probably do systems mapping, showing how the risk can be reduced by end control, and it'll be a 3D hologram that we present to show how this can change. The other part, a new form of risk management that's coming along, which I really like, is this concept of what I call wiki risks. So imagine you're a global organization with many operating units or many projects around the world. You don't have visibility of what's happening in all of them. There's now software that allows a risk professional anywhere in the world, if they observe a risk, to put an electronic post-it note onto some form of a Wikipedia-style risk dashboard. As that post-it goes up, you put some parameters around it, and it sends a signal out to everybody globally around this risk, saying this risk was observed in XYZ area. Does anybody want to contribute? People who have seen that risk in their own area can then add Wikipedia-style content to that page. But the really smart and intelligent part about it is that there is thematic software on top of that that scans the entire organization's literature and reports. Every risk report, quality report, assurance report, compliance report, risk engineering report, it's all scanned in real time, and citations and specific references of thematic words and classes is added to this pile. And what you essentially get in a matter of hours is a Wikipedia-style reference of everything the organization knows and every person you should be speaking to under the specific risk class. We've never done that before. And what I'm saying is that the cyber-enhanced risk management will create new methods of risk management that will completely blow out a lot of the stuff that we are doing and a lot of the stuff that we currently accept as leading practice. Control area number 2, another obvious one. Complex systems thinking. Now this has been around for a while. IBM actually started invested heavily in this in the 80s and generated a lot of stuff around decision making in complex environments. It hasn't really gone mainstream in the risk management community for the longest time, which is a pity. This is where my PhD lies, bringing systems thinking, complex systems thinking to risk management. But the fact is our working world is not getting any simpler. It's only getting more and more systemically complex. We are becoming dependent on more and more complex systems. It's only logical that the risk managers of the future, if they want to understand how complex disruptive phenomena emerge from within all these complex systems we are dependent on, are going to have to understand complexity. They're going to have to understand systems thinking. And there's a lot being written on this, and a lot of courses are starting to be offered. Universities are starting to develop masters in systems thinking, complex problem solving, leadership in complex environments. And there's a lot of stuff out there helping us to better manage complex systems, better understand the complex, emergent, disruptive phenomena that come out of complex systems so that we can manage it better. I cannot, in all the stuff that I've been reading and all the research I've done in the last 4 or 5 years, I cannot see a future version of risk management where complexity management and systems thinking is not a core skill of the future risk management. Obvious control area number 3. A lot of people have spoken about this, the concept of resilience, but this is a very specific brand of resilience, natural or systemic resilience. Some people call it first principles resilience. And the idea behind this is that if we look at our working world, our functional world, there are a lot of incredibly resilient systems out there that have proven themselves to be resilient over time. The human immune system, environmental change, organic change, biological change, the Amazon rainforest. Now I know the Amazon rainforests are under threat, but considering that rainforest is about 7 million years old and covers something like 70 billion square kilometers. I may be wrong in the numbers, but it's huge. One of the questions that people are asking is, how did the Amazon rainforest survive this long on such a large scale with so many planet-shaping disruptive phenomena out there? I mean, if you think about it, in 7 million years, it has weathered meteor strikes, earthquakes, volcanoes, pandemics, floods, droughts, beetle infestations, human intrusion, all of these things, and yet the rainforest is still standing. So there are a lot of people looking at natural systemic resilience and trying to understand, if we can understand what makes the Amazon rainforest or an immune system particularly resilient, and we can bring that into modern organizations, we can actually help those organizations become resilient, because we are experiencing ever-increasing frequencies of change, and the ability to respond positively to change is what resilience is. Unfortunately, in the conventional risk management world, resilience has been a little bit skewed, and it's more around business continuity and disaster recovery planning, which is a type of resilience, but it's a very limited view of resilience. Business continuity plans are not going to help your organization survive in the modern working world. Intelligence, awareness, collaboration, responsiveness, agility, these are all natural characteristics which make natural bodies resilient. And these are the things we've got to learn to emulate in modern organizations. And then the last control area is one that we've heard quite a bit about in the last couple of days. It's this concept of protecting shifting value drivers. So to give you an example, Instagram sold in 2013 for I think it was 1.3 billion to Facebook. When it sold, it had 13 employees and $250,000 in assets. How does a company with $250,000 in physical assets sell for $1.3 billion? All right. Now there are many, many more stories like that coming out. Uber, Fortnite, Airbnb. These are all online companies that are worth billions of dollars and have absolutely no assets. So the intangible asset part of it is interesting, but it's more than just intangible assets. What it's telling us is that modern businesses, their value is actually shifting. There are emerging asset classes, new value drivers, and risk management needs to keep up. Unfortunately, risk management for the longest time has been about protecting physical assets, people, property, products, all right? Which has been fine up until now. But now what we're learning is the true value of an organization is in digital stuff, intangibles. Risk management is going to have to shift. Risk management is going to have to start moving in the direction where it doesn't just protect physical assets, it also protects the intangibles, the emerging asset classes, the digital assets. This is something risk management has not been very good at, but if risk management is to add value in the future generation in Industry 4.0, this is something that it's going to have to start focusing on. So there straight away are 4 control areas that are obvious, that are known, that are well referenced in the academic circles as to what the future of risk management may need to do. So straight away, there are 4 things you can start upskilling on or actually getting your organization to invest in so that you're ready for the Industry 4.0. Which then asks a good question. How might we actually prepare for this future version of risk management? Well, let's just look at existing risk management as a profession. How ripe is it for disruption? In each of the 3 previous industrial revolutions, it was the most repetitive and standardized of tasks that were at the greatest risk of disruption. All right? That has huge ramifications for the risk management profession, because almost everything we do that is considered leading practice in the risk management profession is standardized and repeatable. Audits, compliance checks, health checks, assurance, risk analysis, risk reports. There are all these systematic step-by-step processes, and all of those are at threat of being disrupted by new technologies. Yesterday we had a vendor talk here, sorry, I forget who they were, but they talked about RPA, robotic process automation. And what they do is they go into organizations like yours, they scan your organization and they look for the most repeatable of processes, particularly reporting processes, step-by-step, linear, standardized, repeatable processes, and then they design you an intelligent program or an intelligent bot to do that for you. Now, that's one example. Within 5 years, we are expecting that to be a mainstream service offering, that people will come to you and will radically revolutionize your standardized service offerings within your business and put a program or a bot to do it for you. Risk management, I personally believe, and the empirical evidence suggests that I'm right, is under threat of massive disruption. The way it exists right now may not be there in 20 years or 30 years' time, because a lot of the technology and services that are coming down the line are about removing remedial, repeatable processes. And I think this is something we've got to get comfortable with. Our profession is under threat of a disruption, all right? And I'll give you an example. There's a saying that goes, electricity wasn't created to improve the performance of the candle. So what we've got to understand is that a lot of the technology that's coming down the line isn't being designed to improve existing methods of risk. They are being designed to completely eradicate them so we never have to do it that way again. And this has been one of the fundamental characteristics of every industrial revolution. The most repeatable and standardized of tasks get blown out the water and technology takes over. And this revolution will be no different. Right? So I think we have to open ourselves to the fact that our industry, our profession, our discipline is going to change radically, which means every single one of us and the organizations we represent and the clients we advise are going to have to start thinking seriously about what a future risk management looks like and how we start upskilling and investing in new infrastructure so we can get there. Now, as I said, this is not just my opinion. It is well credentialed. One of the most damning statements that have come out in recent time is probably the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report. And basically what they said, despite the increased intensity of the global risk landscape in recent years, comparatively few participating organizations have invested in the risk management infrastructure necessary to respond positively to emerging global threats. As a result, many organizations now exist in a state of self-induced vulnerability whereby they are potentially sleepwalking into crime. In short, what they're saying is the world has changed and it's continued to change, but we're still doing the same thing we've always done with risk management. We're not upskilling, we're not investing in additional infrastructure, and because of this, we are being left behind, we are being opening ourselves to disruption, and as they're calling it, we're sleepwalking into crisis. So this is a problem, and it's something that has to be addressed. So how do we do this? How do we respond to a changing world and start building up capability and skill that will help us get to where we need to be? So one of the future-proofing activities that I recommend is we need to start developing a valid risk transformation plan for every organization. How many organizations in this room actually have a physical risk transformation plan to get their organization's risk capability from where it is today to where it needs to be in 5 years, 10 years, and 30 years? Now, the reason I have a picture of Mount Everest on here is a couple of us actually attended, and Steve alluded to it earlier, a keynote speaker earlier in the year by Cheryl Bart, who holds the world record, Guinness record, as being the only mother-daughter duo to have climbed Mount Everest, as well as all the 7 continental peaks. And she spoke phenomenally about how the 4th Industrial Revolution is the next Mount Everest that we in industry are going to have to climb. There were 2 key learnings that came out of that for the risk management profession. The first one is that nobody arrives at the base camp of Mount Everest unprepared, all right? Every climber first undergoes a tremendous mental and physical transformation. Those who don't commit to such a necessary transformation either get ejected or die on the mountain, all right? So people who arrive at base camp of Everest, hoping climb, they've spent years, possibly their lifetime, transforming their thinking, their physical resilience, their physical fitness, so they are ready to climb the mountain. Compare that to modern organization. We are roughly at the base camp of the 4th Industrial Revolution. How many organizations are actually transforming themselves to get ready? It's a scary thought. And this is why the World Economic Forum suggests many organizations are sleepwalking into crisis. The second learning from this is that when you do climb the mountain, you have a structured plan. You go from base camp to camp 1, you then assess the situation, which direction the wind coming, are we expecting more snow, is there fog, and then you depend a route to camp 2. The point is you have a structured plan for getting to the top. So organizations need that plan. They need a 5-year plan to get from where we are today to where we need to be in 2025. And this is the number one thing that I would recommend to organizations. Have a plan. Go out and work out for yourself what your version of risk management 4.0 looks like in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, and build a plan to get there. Because the worst possible result is to sit on the sideline and just hope you get there all by yourself. It's not going to work. You're either going to get ejected or you're going to die on the mountain. In other words, you're going to get disrupted. All right. The second future-proofing activity is quite close to my heart. The fact is that there is now so much literature on what the future of risk might look like that it's hard to get a bearing. It almost becomes white noise. And I'm not saying it's not valid. I'm just saying there's too much to actually extract out of there which of those risks are relevant to my organization, and therefore those are the ones I should be building up a capability. So my recommendation is secure an academically valid view of your organization's future risk. By all means, read the stuff that's out there, but go one step further. Start working with academic partners and ask them to help you define what are the big risks and disruptive forces coming down into your industry. Now, the World Economic Forum releases a whole series of reports, and they've actually now started releasing industry-specific reports. So that's a good place to start, if you just want to get a feel for what could impact your business. But take it one step further. There are now universities, academic institutions, and innovation hub that are offering the service. You go work with an academic partner, they'll understand your industry, understand your business, and they'll go research for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. What are the big innovations? What are the big disruptive forces? They will come back and advise you. These are the things that you should be worried about and you should start skilling up for. And I've provided an example on the right-hand side. It's a very abbreviated version of a very good risk report I came across. It was done by the University of Salzburg. What happened was the manufacturing industry, a number of key manufacturing players in Europe were worried about Brexit and the future, fourth industrial revolution. So they engaged the University of Salzburg and said, can you go research our industry and come back and write us a comprehensive report of what are the future risks we should be planning for? And they went out there and they did all the research that they needed to do, got citations, academic empirical evidence, and wrote an academically valid view of these are your top risks. Now this is just an abbreviated version of it. Go look at the report, it's very extensive, but that's what we need to start doing. There are so many diverging opinions out there, and all of them are right at some level, but how relevant are they to your organization? If you want to cut through all the white noise and you genuinely want to invest in a future version of Industry 4.0, you're going to need to start working with academic partners and do detailed research on what is happening in your industry and what disruptive forces are coming down the line and what that means for building up your risk management capability. So my personal view, if you're a major global organization, you need an academic partner who can advise you on these kind of things, because in the absence of an academic partner, everything that comes across your desk is just opinion. As W.E. Deming used to say, any observation without supporting evidence is no more than an opinion. We don't want to work on opinions. We want to work on empirical fact. Start working with academic partners to understand what the future of your industry looks like. And then another one is a simple one, and this is probably the only other one that I have, is regularly test your organization's risk readiness. It's not a hard thing. So I've spoken about a couple of things you could be doing in your organization, and this is a very simple one to start with. You may want to personalize ones for your organization, but just as a rough brief, let's talk about how ready is my risk management capability for a future Industry 4.0. So first question, does our risk management capability fully embrace the advantages of the modern cyber culture? In other words, are we keeping up with new thinking and methods? Yes, no, all right? Does our risk management capability retain sufficient knowledge, capability, and validity to control the disruptive phenomena associated with increased complexity? In other words, are we actually trained in the science of managing complexity? You cannot possibly claim to be managing complexity if none of your resources actually understand complexity or have any scientific validity in the management of complexity, all right? Number 3, does our existing risk management efforts enable an organizational-wide sense of resilience? In other words, increased intelligence, awareness, cohesion, and agility? Again, yes, no. Number 4, are our risk management efforts protecting our most valid value drivers, threats and opportunities? In other words, do we genuinely know what they are? And one of the things you should learn now is business is changing so rapidly that what we think our organization's value drivers are may change quickly. Is our risk management actually allowing us to observe when they change and protect accordingly? Number 5, do we have an active transformation plan in place to upskill and recapitalize our risk management capability over the next 5 years or at least? Folks, if you had never heard me talk today, you would have left here knowing that the world has changed, because everybody else who spoke before me spoke about how the world is changing, how new methods are coming through, the influence of big data, analytics, autonomy, intelligent machines, etc., etc. So before I even set foot in the stage, every one of you knew the world is changing. But the question I put to you is, how many of you are actually transforming your risk management capability and infrastructure to keep up? And that is the only question that needs to be answered. If we do not have a plan to upskill and invest in additional infrastructure to keep up with the changes of the world, then we are opening ourselves up to disruption. So for me, that question number 5 is the only question that matters. But if you want to broaden it, by all means, there are a couple of other ones. And simply just go through it mentally, yes, no, yes, no. And if you have more than 2 no's, chances are you're open for disruption. Sorry, I'm not making this up. And if you don't believe me, let's have a look at the board. Shift happens, all right? Every brand on the left-hand side was a global leader in their industry in our lifetime. And then they got disrupted by changes in the market, changes in industry. Every leading practice in the middle column was a practice that we were critically dependent on to survive. And I guarantee there's not a single person in this room who knows how to do all of that. Maybe you know how to do 1 or 2 of that, but nobody can do all of that. And yet, that was critical to our survival for the better part of like 10,000 years, but we've forgotten it because technology has overtaken. And on the right-hand side, every one of those products there were highly innovative for their time, and then they got disrupted. And the one that I like is, have a look at the bottom, the iPod. 10 years ago, it was the biggest selling Christmas present in the world. You give an iPod to a 10-year-old child today, they don't know how to use it. They know how to use a smartphone, they use iPad because we've moved. But the point is, that is how quickly innovations are becoming obsolete. Kids cannot use an iPod anymore. So to close, hopefully there are a couple of key learnings from today which you can take away from it. The first one, and hopefully not just I, but everybody else who spoke during the last 2 days have convinced you of, is the future combination of big data, smart technologies, and complex cyber systems is going to revolutionize our existing working world in ways we cannot yet fully comprehend. Number two, what we currently accept as leading practice or business as usual will almost certainly be redefined during the fourth industrial revolution. The known future of risk management lies in complex systems thinking, resilience theory, and cyber-enhanced methods. So if you want a job 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, start upskilling and investing in those 3 areas, because all the academic literature is suggesting that's the direction risk management will go. Lastly, modern organizations need to start visualizing, planning, and upskilling for a risk management version 4.0 if they are to survive the transition to a future industry 4.0. And if there's only one thing you remember from this half-an-hour talk today or from the 2 days, have a plan. Don't be the person who arrives at base camp just hoping to climb the mountain. Have a plan to transform. Because if you don't have a plan, you're opening yourself up to disruption. All right, thank you.